most boring slides ever, but I am here representing the strategy side of things, not the design side of things. So that's how things go. So I'm going to talk a bit today about kind of a roadmap to XM Cloud. This is something we've been talking with a number of customers and prospects about. To a lot of the points that Jean just brought up, there is a lot of appeal to XM Cloud and gets people excited about kind of moving towards the future of the platform and really embracing this new composable infrastructure. But oftentimes, as we get into conversations about what that really looks like and what that really means, you start to see a little bit of anxiety come. So we'll talk a little bit about the path to get there. So I'll do a quick introduction. And then, how do customers and prospects need to prepare for this migration? What does that look like? What does it mean going headless, etc. The actual migration itself, and then, any questions, feel free to jump in at any point. All right. Quick about me. So I lead account management and sales here at Agency Q. I work with our customers all day, every day. How can they use Sitecore better? How do we help solve some of their biggest business challenges? As Lisa kindly said and has mentored me in the process of, I am a first-time strategy MVP, so that was a very exciting accomplishment this year. Some fun facts about me. April Fool's Day will mark 10 years both at Agency Q and in the Sitecore community, so it's been a good joke. And most importantly, I am a dog mom to a 4-year-old miniature schnauzer named Hank, and he says hi. All right, XM Cloud, the what and the why. So in terms of the what, as we know, this is Sitecore's SaaS CMS, and as opposed to kind of the monolithic version we talk about, traditional XP, XM. Some of the reasons that we talk about with customers in terms of why they opt to migrate to XM Cloud. This first one's a tough one, actually, that we've had in a number of conversations recently, is that lower total cost of ownership. We've had a number of good conversations with prospects. You do have to kind of run the numbers out over a couple years to really start to see that lower total cost of ownership, but between the kind of one throat to choke model and reducing the number of vendors, being able to do enhancements and spin up other sites a bit quicker, it can also reduce some of your infrastructure costs and input and footprint over the long haul. And like I said, it can allow for some greater flexibility and allow teams to be a bit more nimble. As much as all of our customers love those upgrades, anytime we talk to a customer that they have to upgrade or they've just come off an upgrade, it is with great sighs, it is with great exhaustion, as we know. Hence, why the data weavers of the world exists, of course. But XM Cloud does obviously help alleviate a lot of that pain and heartache, so that you can focus on more of the strategic efforts, the investments in personalization, things that people love about Sitecore. And as I said, kind of one centralized owner. This is a big point of appeal, I think, for a lot of prospects too. That there isn't, oh, we have Sitecore, oh, we have hosting, oh, we have, our partner. It's in, kind of one centralized owner. Now, as Ed brought up in his presentation, as Jean was just talking about, it's not right for everybody. There is still going to be a time and a place for the more monolithic implementations. We at Agency Q operate in some of the sectors that I think are going to be the real laggards there, the highly regulated industry, certainly from a public sector standpoint. But also depends on the complexity of your architecture, all of your integrations, et cetera, that you're looking to integrate with. And we got to keep the Eds of the world employed, so it depends on the skill set of your team as well. And like I said, it's not necessarily right for all industries. All right, so like I said, I represent the strategy side. I end up talking to a lot of business users and marketers all day, every day. So in terms of the differences, I won't pretend to stand up here and represent a lot of the technical differences here, of which I know there are many. But some of the big kind of pros that we've seen in our conversations with customers, that editing interface is a big selling point. Sitecore Pages. So, we've gone from the benefits of experience editor and content, versus content editors, which I understand is still supported in XM Cloud, to the Horizon editor that was a bit better, and that is now going away, and we have Sitecore pages, which is, we saw in Symposium and in a lot of the demos, is much slicker. It's been a big point of attraction for marketers, etc., who have said, we got so excited about Sitecore, but my God, is it a pain? And is it confusing? And they talk about, the ghost of Sitecore, what does this field do? And I don't remember, and all of that fun stuff that we hear every day. SXA, obviously supporting the headless SXA kind of model here. One of our clients, actually, we've been talking with them. We are in the process of migrating them to XM on-prem, but they ultimately have a requirement of migrating to XM Cloud. So this is obviously something, as we build their site, kind of this first go-around, that we make sure, instead of using the MVC. Search and forms, so really kind of embracing that composable model. This does rely for search, etc., on third-party tools like either Sitecore Search or like Covio or Algolia, etc. And same thing with forms, whether you're running it out of your marketing automation platform or at least for now, is my understanding. All right, so looking at what this actually means to migrate, and like I said, yeah.
Would you mind if I ask you like some
Please do.
basic questions about XM Cloud? So
I won't lie if I can't answer
was
them.
it the XM on-prem code base, or was it completely rewritten?
So my understanding, and people keep me honest here, I think it's similar core to version 10 of XM, but
10.2.
In the next session, we're going to show some of the XM Cloud. But there is not that many headless implementations of the standard XM out there right now. So in a lot of cases, you're talking a new code base.
Okay. And is it? Okay.
Yeah. But if you are on a 10x version that is headless, you stand a really good chance of being able to just migrate your code.
It's not recoded because Cypress had headless for the past several years, but you're forced to be headless for this.
Correct.
And is it all a single tenant, or is it multi-tenant cloud?
Steve, help me out on that one.
You mean not within each, you don't mean within your own instance, but rather like with other instances, whether it's
Well, it's kind of a cloud structure, right? Like you either have a single tenant where I can decide what to upgrade and everything, and it's physically separate, or there's multi-tenant where you have a lot of shared services. Of course, separated logically with security boundaries and everything, but everyone is using the same, essentially from a code perspective, the same back end, maybe the same database with logical partitioning, all that kind of stuff.
I think it's more single.
what ends?
No, it's effectively what I would consider isolated, because it's a lot of containers and sort of an isolated multi-tenant, because it is a shared infrastructure and philosophy. But you do have isolated resources.
So everyone gets upgraded at once.
Yes.
Yeah, but your editor is your message and your aspect, which is not a single database. So, and he's got it right, it's multiple databases, but it's like 4 or 5, right, for worldwide coverage. So if your purity test is in one database to rule them all, it's not one database, but they are, for performance reasons, for data localization reasons, there's 4 or 5.
Okay. Thanks.
But your editor is your
Study intercept.
So, any upgrades don't mess with your editor.
All right, so one of the big pieces in terms of this presentation, obviously one of the big differences with the XM Cloud architecture is you have to go headless. And if you're not already, this can kind of often swing the degree to how painful or how significant this migration can be. And I was reading a lot in preparation for this presentation of, if you're on like version 9 or older, do you upgrade first in your kind of on-prem instance and then migrate over, or do you do a full rebuild? And a lot of that is going to depend on you know, kind of where you are in your digital roadmap. Are you tying this in kind of with a redesign? That's kind of how we're talking a lot about it with customers. You know, if they're looking to do kind of a bigger redesign, you know, go more component-based, you know, looking for a refresh, etc., this is kind of a good time to tie it all in. But yes, it does require a headless architecture. So, you know, you're preparing for, you know, mostly a full rebuild as part of the migration to XM Cloud, depending on the state that you're starting in. And of course, in going to a headless architecture, you're going to need, you know, a hosting option for your front end if you don't have one already. Thanks to our partners here at Purcell, they're a good option. It's also a good time for spring cleaning. So we were talking recently with one of our clients out of Florida, and they were like, "Oh, we're just going to do a lift and shift." I was like, "Okay, well, calm down." You know, first you need to go headless. Second of all, your, you know, user interface is very, very old and dated. That's not going to, you know, port over one for one. They also had hundreds of renderings in their back end, many of which were unused. Like I said, we have a lot of clients who complain about the ghost of Sitecore. They don't know what something does. They have a lot of dated stuff in there, so this is a good time to really do an inventory of what do you truly need, what do you need going forward. If you're not in a component-based architecture, it's a good time to do it. Develop that design system of reusable components that can scale across your different properties. Doing this can also, you know, obviously help reduce the cost of your migration if you're not migrating all of your stuff over. And then in terms of, you know, preparing for the move to actual XM Cloud, you know, for any who have been on XP and really taking advantage of, you know, a lot of marketing features, XDB, personalization, etc., you have to kind of deprecate your use of those features in migrating over, because you can either embrace something like personalize or CDP, etc., or, you know, there are other personalization and analytics features in XM Cloud. Like I mentioned before, search, so there's not like a native search to XM Cloud, so you would leverage something like a Sitecore search or a Cobia or some sort of third party there. And for forms, you know, as I understand it, that's something that maybe is coming to XM Cloud in the future, but for now would rely on a third party solution like your marketing automation or whatever. All right. And then in terms of the actual migration, when you get into it, you know, you'd be provisioning, standing up XM Cloud, you know, setting up your DevOps processes, building out any new components, etc., and then, you know, migrating your features and code over. Of course, everybody's favorite topic. Apparently, it is Ed's favorite topic. You then have content migration, which if you're going from, you know, a pretty well-kept Sitecore instance to XM Cloud, you know, it could be relatively straightforward in terms of packaging it up and moving it forward. If you're coming from a non-Sitecore system like a WordPress or Drupal or something like that, maybe a little messier, but obviously still doable.
Can you say that again about, like, shout the packaging things up and moving them over part? Because I think that's really important for people to know.
Yeah. So as I understand it, you know, for the actual migration of your content from an XM or XP to XM Cloud, you know, you should be able to package up your content and import it over. You know, there may be options of razzling things over, etc.
Assuming that it was well-structured in a component-driven manner
Yes.
previously. Keeping in mind that when we go to headless, when we're moving into these new elements, we're moving into the 6A, et cetera, everything's becoming very component-driven. So if you have an older site that was more driven on page data and et cetera, that packaging might be a lot harder. If you have something that's already pretty cleanly component-driven, componentized and broken apart that way, you know, a lot of the world has changed when we talk about this, but templates are still templates, data items are still data items. Some of the composition of that, the way that we ultimately present it, might change. But
presentation details, that's where the problem might be.
yes, presentation details, that world's going to change a lot, but a lot of your data items and et cetera are going to move over. It's just a matter of how we compose them now.
All right. And then, of course, never to be underestimated is the training aspect. You know, this could be something that's easy to overlook because you're going Sitecore to Sitecore. But really the editing interface, particularly for marketing or business users, et cetera, it is going to be different. As we see it, in many ways it could be much easier and a welcome relief from what people may be used to, but it is still different, so you do want to, of course, leave time for training, and particularly if you've been doing personalization via kind of the rules-based XDB mode of XP, and you're moving to something more significant like a personalize or something like that, it is obviously going to be a very different way of operating.
Hey Megan,
Yeah.
I've been told this, and I'm curious if those of you that have played with it can validate this for me. If let's say I was somebody who moved and was a heavy user of the experience and content editor, as is explained to me by our product team, if I use Pages, I can kind of go both ways in the sense that if I develop an experience in Pages, somebody else who knows the experience and content editor can access that same page, and kind of edit it, and then I can come back as the user in Pages and see it the same way. Is that accurate?
In the next demo, and just a little bit here, I'm gonna show some of those interfaces and et cetera. I believe for the most part,
Okay.
I do believe that, look, experience editor is gone, right? So you don't have that. If that is what you're used to, things are gonna feel different. But if you understand how Sitecore works, you've been dealing with it for a while, I think the Pages interface is still gonna make sense. It's gonna be very different. You're gonna have to figure out something, click around, stumble around a little bit, figure it out, but it's still gonna make sense.
Experience Editor's gone or Horizon's gone?
Alright, both of them.
Both of them.
Yeah, okay.
For XM Cloud,
Yeah, gotcha.
the Experience Editor isn't exposed. Content Editor is exposed. Experience Editor is not.
Gotcha. Cool. So just kind of wrapping it all up, this is potentially a big change. It's a big investment for companies. We know we've seen a lot of sticker shock as we've talked about kind of the initial move. They think they're getting a discount right off the bat in terms of migrating to the cloud, but really that investment is realized over time. If you are debating an upgrade or a migration, really think about kind of where your architecture currently is, your roadmap for the future, what you're looking to do from a front-end perspective as well. It's a good opportunity if you're looking at a redesign or something like that. It's a good opportunity to start thinking about migrating to XM Cloud. Some of the key takeaways, it allows you to consolidate kind of different vendors, et cetera, that you're working with. There is a greater ease for business users, which Steve will show some of that in the next one. And there is an ability to scale with quickly adding other sites and things like that, depending on what your overall strategy is. Even if you're not on Sitecore, XM Cloud, maybe if you're thinking XM Cloud may be right for you. Some of the things to start thinking about are adopting more of a headless architecture and really building out your digital roadmap, thinking about what you do need, what you don't need, what you're looking to deprecate, things like that. Any questions? Yeah.
Is there a ecosystem of content migration tools out there that would automate the migration from XM or XP, depending on and I understand all the caveats around componentization versus Pages and stuff like that. Is there an ecosystem of tools, or is this something that like Agency Q and somebody else just does their own kind of lift and shift for you?
So certainly if you're in a mode where you're not in a current headless architecture and you're looking to go to XM Cloud, that would definitely require more of a comprehensive rethinking or rebuild by like an Agency or someone similar. If you're already in a headless architecture on XM looking to go to XM Cloud, I don't know if you have any sense of that.
Really, if you're already there, the serialization tools that are brought to us in Sitecore 10 will get you there. If you're not, if you're coming from a kind of different architecture, it's really going to depend. A lot of the same old tools that we've been using for a long time are still going to apply. PowerShell extensions are going to do a lot for us. We can use tools like Razzle to selectively take certain pieces. Even the Sitecore serialization tools to a degree. But no, there's no two Sitecore databases are the same, so there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all tool for, hey, let's migrate that.
Not to mention personalization, X-Connect, all of that is gone now.
Correct.
So,
And as far as XM Cloud, is it feature equivalent to XM on-prem? In other words, from metadata management, workflow, all of the other things that
Yes.
one would expect?
100%.
Yes.
Is there things in XM Cloud that were in XP but not in XM on-prem?
The main thing is the CDP personalized, there's like a light personalization
Yep.
aspect to the XM Cloud. That's completely different than what's with XP. And then you also get the portal, the Sitecore portal as part of it as well.
We'll talk about it a little bit. It's different. Pages is quite an upgrade from Experience Editor and even Horizon. So yeah, there's a handful of things that you get that you don't get with the on-prem.
I think the one thing that I would call out, for the Path Analyzer, if that's something that you really love, is not excellent. So you will have to find something for kind of that visualization if you're one of the people. And again, you know, as I understand it, there's kind of very mixed reviews on that within the community on to its utility, but it is, again.
Most of us had to turn it off for performance reasons anyways.
But man, did it make a pretty visual to sell Sitecore.
It was great in the demo.
Yes, it was.
And what are the key licensing levers in XM Cloud? Is it volume of content, volume of throughput, number of editors, like, how does all that? Because let's say I'm on some perpetual license and I'm playing average of 20% maintenance and hosting, you know, maintenance and support. Now maybe I'm self-hosting, maybe I'm hosting in a private cloud. Now I'm going to XM Cloud, like what's going to determine, what are the key determinants of the cost for me?
Jean, you may have to help me out with this one.
Yeah, I mean, I would talk to your rep, but visits, because it's gonna be different, because there's different ways you can migrate existing customers. You know, so you gotta kind of look at each customer, you know, individually, but it's still gonna be number of visits. There's also number of, like, the project as well, and production and non-production. I'd say those are some of the
But if I'm
metrics.
completely headless, does it still play into it?
I believe so. I've gotta look, I've gotta look, I can't remember right off the top of my head.
well, completely headless would be Content Hub 1, right?
There is, yep, and there's our content in one solution as well, so.
Yeah.
That's why I would talk to, you know, are you a customer particular?
No, I'm just saying.
Okay, so if you have a particular customer, I would talk to the rep, they can help advise, so. Because there's ways you can structure things and look at things.
All right. Thanks, everybody.